Shaoan, are you doing daydreaming again? Still want to be a risk-taking person? You are so ill-powered that you can't beat wild pigs outside the town. A harsh laughter came from the corner of the street, and several young people wearing old camouflage uniforms surrounded each other, pointing at a thin figure far away and laughing. My name is Shaoan, I am 18 years old, and I live in this broken town. The people here are either farmers or hunters. The only question is who is getting a little broken in the wilderness again, or whose cattle is taken away by wild animals. And I have been the jokes in their mouths since I was a child. It's not because I'm stupid, but because I always say I want to be the most powerful adventurer, to conquer the wilderness of the world, and to challenge the prehistoric giants in the legend. Smile, shit. I gritted my teeth and tightened my old backpack in my hand, with the map I had brought from the waste station and several pieces of pressure-reducing breasts. When I really become a big shot, you have to kneel down and apologize to me. Yeah, are you still stubborn? The guy with his head called Daqiang, full of flesh and his arms are thicker than my thighs. He walked over, grabbed my backpack, shook the things inside, and laughed. Just this broken thing, what can you do to the wilderness? Can you feed the wilderness? The people around me laughed and my face turned red, but when I lifted my hand, I was held down by a big force. He sneered and said, "Save it, waste your hair, don't be seen here. Who in the town doesn't know that you can't climb up even the trees? Are you still prone to your home? Go dream." I bit my teeth tightly, but I didn't even keep my mouth. It's not that I'm afraid of him, but that I know that moving my hands will only make me more worried. I lowered my head and lifted my backpack that was thrown on the ground, patted off the ashes on it, turned around and left. The guys behind were still laughing, but I was filled with anger in my heart. One day, I would let them shut up. That night, I lay on the broken little bed, turning around and unable to sleep. Outside the window is the broken road lights of the town, and the dim light makes the room even more sour. I stared at the marks on the ceiling. My brain was filled with the ridicule of helping people during the day. Suddenly, I sat up and took out a broken notebook from under the bed. It was left by my dad, and it was full of the stories he heard when he was young about the faraway wilderness deep in the wilderness, and those mysterious giant beasts. I would have a good time. I muttered, sliding my fingers over a page on the notebook, which was a vague wolf-shaped pattern on it, and the power of the king of beasts is obtained by the mind. My dad said that this is the secret of the forbidden forest outside the town, and whoever finds it can become a real adventurer. Unfortunately, he himself didn't find it, and he was seriously injured during a hunting trip and had been unable to get up. Don't worry, try it. I felt so nervous, grabbed my backpack, stuffed some dry fruits and flashlight, and sneaked out of the monk while the night was falling. The forbidden forest outside the town was as dark as ink. When the wind blew, the leaves rustled, as if something was staring at me. My heart beats like a drum, but my pace doesn't stop. The notebook says that I have to find it in a cave at the deepest part of the forbidden forest. After about 2 hours of walking, my legs were almost soft. Finally, I saw a dark hole. The edge of the hole was covered with moss and a strange smell was emitted. I took the flashlight and took a photo, but it was hard to see it. There were still some incomprehensible symbols on the wall. I swallowed and walked in with my head hard. The hole was so cold that it was covered with gravel under the feet, and you could still hear the dripping sound of water. After I walked for more than 10 minutes, a stone platform suddenly appeared in front of me, with a strange thing on it like a black stone with cracks on it, hidden from the surface in blue light. My heart beats faster. It's absolutely not simple. Is this the Beast King's thing? I murmured in a low voice and reached for it. But when I hit the stone, a cold air rolled into my body with my fingers. When I was so excited, a low voice suddenly echoed in my brain, "Where my heart is in and wherever my strength comes, can you bear my strength?" I shook my hand, but the sound came again, as if it was blowing directly in my brain, "Answer me." I do it. I didn't know where the skull came out. As the sound fell, the stone suddenly shattered, and the blue light shone brightly, making the entire cave look like the daytime. I subconsciously closed my eyes, and when it opened again, there was a lot of chaotic things in my brain, like some ancient language, or like a Dharma door to communicate with something. What's this thing? I didn't react yet, and a low growl suddenly came from outside the cave, shaking the ground. My heart was tightened and ran out to see a huge beast standing outside. It was snow white all over, with blue eyes as blue as ice, and its body was larger than a small car. It was filled with coldness, like a wolf crawling out of a glacier. Bound trough. My legs were soft, but the sound in my brain sounded again, summon me and fight with you. I didn't know what was going on, but a string of strange sounds appeared in my mouth for no reason. The giant wolf suddenly turned to look at me, and there was no enemies in his eyes, but instead walked towards me with his head down. My heart was almost out of my way, but I just told me that this guy wouldn't hurt me. Boss, you heard me? I tried to ask. The giant wolf roared, as if it was a little bit. My brain heated up and reached out to touch its hair. It was so icy that I couldn't tell. Ha ha ha. I've come to my senses. I couldn't help but shout, and the sound replied in the forbidden forest. This frost giant wolf will definitely make me turn over. As the sky was dawn, I returned to the town with the giant wolf. It was hidden in the forest on the road, and I didn't want to be scared to death on the first day. But when I arrived at the entrance of the town, the guy who mocked me surrounded me again. De Chang looked disdainful and spitted, "Yuan, Wu Chai, where did you go last night? Wouldn't you really go to the forbidden forest to die, right? Send to death? I'm living well." I sneered and whistled to the forest behind me. The next second, the frost giant wolf walked out slowly, and the cold instantly frost-led the grassland around it. All of those people were stunned, and De Chang took 2 steps back, his face turned pale. What's this?" someone shouted tremblingly. "This is my partner, the frost wolf." I raised my head, and my voice was filled with pride. "Frost, today, I will challenge the conquest of the global wilderness and become the strongest adventurer. Whoever agrees, even if you come and try it." The whole scene was calm for a few seconds, and then a discussion broke out. Some were shocked, some were suspicious, but more were awe. I looked at their expressions and felt so happy. This is what I should have. But at this time, a harsh sound came from behind the crowd. "That's it? A broken wolf wants to conquer the wilderness? Shaoan, you really brag." I turned around and saw that it was Jia, the guy who was self-treating the genius in the world of danger. He was wearing a tall escort, full of disdain, and followed several subordinates along the way. "Jia, stop talking." I stared at him, clenched my fists. "If you have the ability, let's compete." "Bye? You are the only one?" Jia laughed and winked at his subordinates. "Ahu, go up and teach this wasteland, what is a real adventurer." The sir, named Ahu, grinned, took out a dagger and rushed towards me. My heart was tight, but I didn't retreat, and I silently recited the preface I had just learned. The next second, the frost giant wolf roared and swung over, slapped Ahu with one claw, and the dagger dropped. The man rolled around on the ground for several times, but he couldn't even get up. "Who is here again?" I glanced at Jia coldly, and the giant wolf roared lowly beside me, making people feel cold. Jia's face was blue, but she didn't dare to move. She just gritted her teeth and said, "Shaoan, this is the beginning. Let's take a look. I'll be with you anytime." I curled my lips and turned away with the giant wolf. There was a lot of controversy behind me, but I knew that from today on, no one in the town would dare to underestimate me. The journey to conquer the world wilderness is just the first step. On the day I left the town, the sun just climbed up the mountain, and the clouds around the sky were dyed golden yellow. I carried my old backpack and the frost giant wolf followed me with a low profile, hiding in the shadow of the forest. Although I'm already familiar with it, the coldness of this guy still makes me shiver from time to time. There were several people standing at the entrance of the town, some of whom were enthusiastic about watching and some were sincerely seeing them off. One of the figures is the most eye-catching, Ko Xin, my deceased and best assistant. "Shaoan, are you really going to leave?" Xian was wearing a practical outdoor dress, with short hair and horsetails. She was worried in her eyes, but she was more supportive. She held a small notebook in her hand, full of her wild survival skills, from raising fire to distinguishing directions. Everything is available. Winning, I said that I wanted to conquer the wilderness of the world. How could I go halfway? I grinned and patted my backpack. The first stop is the extreme glacier. I heard that there is a rumbling ice field in that place, and I might find more zombie king lines. Kirsten rolled her eyes and said with a slight angrily, "You are just a reckless person. The glaciers are not something you can play with. They can be -10 degrees below zero, and they can become popsicles at any time, and there are various types of insects. Are you sure you are ready? With this guy here, I'm not afraid of anything." I roared at Lindsay behind me, and the frost giant wolf growled, as if it was a response. Kirsten glanced at the big figure. Although she was still a little nervous, she finally pointed, "Okay, I'll go with you to save you from committing suicide alone." "Hey, I can't ask for it." I smiled and hit her shoulder, and my heart fell into a lot. Although this person is slandering me, he never loses the chain when he encounters something. With her, my journey will at least not be too lonely. After bidding farewell to the town, we took an old cart, turned around for a few days, and finally arrived at the edge of the extreme glacier. This place was so cold that it was scraped on the face like a knife, and the breath turned into white smoke in an instant. The surroundings were covered with white areas, and the icebergs far away were like giant teeth, with a sense of pressure that could not be described. The frost giant wolf was like a fish, its blue eyes flashing in the snow, and its pace was as fast as it was when it was going home. This place is really not something that people can treat. Xian wrapped her body with feathers and teeth were chewing. She took out a small instrument and looked at the temperature, -45 degrees below zero. We have to find a place to avoid the wind, otherwise it will be really stiff. "Okay, I'll hear you." I clicked the head and let the frost giant wolf explore the way forward. This guy felt more spiritual than a dog. He took us to find a natural ice cave. The hole was not big, but it was hard to resist the wind. We clicked a small fire, and the fire reflected on the ice wall, shining with a faint blue light, which looked a little strange, but at least it was a little warm. It was like this on the first day. What should I do later? Xian muttered while roasting the fire, flipping through the notebook and starting to record environmental data. I can't even see any birds in this place. How can I solve the food supplement? Also, glacier cracks are everywhere and may fall down at any time. Don't panic, I have to dry the food, and I have no problem with it for a few days. I patted my backpack, then looked at the frost wolf. As for danger, if it's here, no one will be afraid. Xian curled her lips, saying nothing, but there was still concern in her eyes. I knew what she was thinking, but the story here was not just cold and cracks, but also the huge ice-field beasts that were so fierce. In other words, the overlord here is an ice-field giant bear, with a larger body than a tank, and his claws can easily smack icebergs. Even the top adventurers dare not be easily tempted by it. Sure enough, it took no time for the trouble to come to the door. That night, we were just about to rest, and a deep roar suddenly came from outside the cave, which made the entire ice cave tremble. The frost giant wolf suddenly stood up, and its hair exploded. Its blue eyes stared at the entrance of the hole, and its threatening growl came out of its throat. What's the matter? I felt nervous and grabbed the iron stick next to me. Xian also stood up tightly, took out a multifunction dagger, and said in a short voice, "If you hear this sound, unlike a small character, you may be the icefield giant bear." As the sound fell, a huge shadow appeared at the entrance of the cave, covering only the moonlight. The guy's body was almost filled with the entire hole, the white fur was covered with ice, and his eyes were red like blood, emitting a murderous atmosphere that made people's legs soft. It growled, slapped its claws hard on the whole wall, and the broken ice fell down, as if warning us to roll out. Both trough, this thing is too big. I swallowed, my heart beat as fast as a drum. Kirsten pulled me back and said in a low voice, "Don't be too tough, this guy is not something we can deal with, so find a chance to run away." Run? Run away. I bit my teeth tightly, and the familiar sound suddenly echoed in my brain, the power of the Beast King. It seemed to be urging me to tell me that this was an opportunity to subdue this giant bear. I took a deep breath and looked at the frost giant wolf. Old guy, let's go up and fuck it. The frost giant wolf roared, and the cold air instantly exploded, and the temperature in the cave was lowered a lot. It suddenly snatched towards the giant bear, with blue light in its claws, and directly tore off the thick fur on the other side. The giant bear was in pain, roared and counterattacked, slapped down with one claw, and a wire cracked directly on the ground. The frost giant wolf hid, but was still rubbed, and a low sound came out. Shaoan, are you crazy? Shaoan shouted anxiously, but I ignored her, closed my eyes and silently recited the ancient languages in my brain. Suddenly, I felt a wonderful connection, like an invisible line connecting me with the frost wolf, and even the giant bear. I suddenly opened my eyes and shouted, Ice wolf, after swaying, bite its neck. The frost giant wolf seemed to have understood it, quickly surrounds behind the giant bear and bites its back. The giant bear roared in pain and swung its body wildly, but the ice wolf couldn't help but feel relieved. The cold air rushed in with the wound, causing the giant bear to move slowly. Seeing the opportunity, I grabbed the iron stick and smashed the giant bear's knee. Although my energy is similar to stooping to it, it at least attracted its attention. Curson, throw the torch. I shouted. Shaoan was stunned for a moment, but immediately reacted and grabbed the burning torch and threw it at the giant bear. The fire burned on its fur. Although it could not hurt it, the heat made it even more irritable. In the distracted manner, the frost giant wolf took advantage of the opportunity to tear off a large piece of meat. The giant bear finally couldn't stand it, so it let out a ruthless roar and fell to the ground, shaking the ice cave again. I gasped, my body was soaked in cold sweat, but there was a feeling of anxiety in my heart that I couldn't say. I walked over and squatted in front of the giant bear. The sound in my brain sounded again, where the heart is to, where the strength comes, it will be subdued, or it may be destroyed. Submit. I said softly, reaching out and pressing it on the giant bear's head. A blue light spread from my palm to it, and the giant bear's red eyes gradually became gentle. With a low growl, it lowered its head, as if it was surrendering. It's done. I sat on the ground, smiling like a fool. The frost giant wolf walked over and licked my hand, as if to show me how beautiful it was. Shaoan was stunned, and after a long time returning to her senses, she rushed over and grabbed my leader. You guy is desperate. If you miss it, we have to explain this to you. But we won, right? I grinned and pointed at the giant bear. This guy is our fighter now. With it here, the extreme glaciers are still walking away. I can slam my head without saying a word, but I also have a little admiration in my eyes. She squatted down, checked the giant bear's wound, took out the first aid kit from her backpack, and handled it simply. The bear's fighting power is too strong, and the fur is as hard as an iron plate. It is estimated that it can withstand most attacks. Shaoan, your ability is really not a slim. It's a must. I patted my chest, feeling so happy in my heart. Subduing the giant ice-field bear is an achievement that many adventurers dare not even imagine. I let the giant bear and the ice wolf guard the entrance of the cave to prevent other wild animals from approaching, and then grabbed Curson for a tight time to rest. Although I was as tired as a dog, I knew that this was just the first priority of the journey, and there were more challenges waiting for me later. A few days later, we left the glacier with 2 giant beasts and returned to the nearest supplement station. On the way, Curson took a video with her casual equipment, recorded the scenes of me fighting with the giant bear and the ice wolf, and posted them on the Adventurers Forum. I was just trying to leave a thought, but I didn't expect this video to become popular in an instant. The click volume exceeded 1 million in just a few hours, and the comment area was directly exploded. Who is this? One person subdued the giant ice-field bear? It's open. The frost giant wolf and the giant bear listened to him together? This ability is too amazing. Even the extreme glaciers dare to go. This person is definitely a real big shot, he's so much fan. Looking at these comments, my heart was so beautiful that I bubbling. Although it wasn't yet to the point of global conquest, at least, the name Shaoan began to be published in adventure circles. Kirsten looked at the screen and couldn't help but complain, "You guy, your energy is so good, and you will become a net red in every battle." What kind of energy is power? I smiled and replied, but I knew in my heart that this was just the beginning. With a reputation, we need to use more battles to prove ourselves. The news was quickly transmitted back to the town, and the help of those who had laughed at me was stunned. Some even began to praise me, saying that I had long seen that I was not an ordinary person. But there were also dissatisfaction sounds. After hearing the news, the guy in Gia posted on the forum publicly, full of disdain, "What's the point of subduing a bear? I'm purely obsessed. I really have the ability to come to the desert to compete with me, and see who can come out alive." When I saw this post, I was sitting in the old bar that was supplemented with the station, holding a bottle of hot cocoa in my hand. The words on the screen made me angry, but when Xian saw my expression, she knew it was going to be bad. She hurriedly pressed me, "Don't urge, this guy is deliberately urging you. Our goal is to conquer the world, not to be more compatible with this kind of person. Precaution? What I want is crushing." I sneered and knocked back, "Injia, the desert is right? Wait, I will go down the stand and step on you under my feet." After a reply, the comment area was another hot topic. Some say I'm crazy, some say I'm looking for death, but more people are starting to look forward to this battle. I turned off the screen and looked at the iceberg far away from the window, clenched my fists. Extreme glaciers are just the first step, whether it is the desert or the rainforest. If you dare to slap me, I will carry my giant army and crush them all the way. After leaving the extreme glacier replenishment station, Kirsten and I didn't bother to book a ticket to the rainforest. The place is called Green Demon Forest, which is the second stop of the global wilderness conquest journey, called the Tomb of the Protective Family. I heard that there are not only poisonous insects, but also various strange natural traps. When 10 adventurers go in, 9 of them have to explain. The comments on the forum have already exploded. Some people said that I could subdue the giant bear in the ice field, and the rainforest should not be there. Some people sneered and swore to me for only 3 days. Shaoan, this time is really not a joke. On the plane, Xian held the tablet and flipped through the information of the Green Demon Forest. Her eyebrows were as if she was like a mahua. The poisonous fog here can make people unconscious directly, and there are also groups of giant pythons that will kill people if they don't move. Are you sure we are ready? What are you afraid of? There are frost giant wolf and icefield giant bear, so why don't you kneel? I patted my chest and leaned on the seat without caring. Actually, I have no idea, but I can't be jealous and have enough energy. Moreover, the power of the Beast King object has not yet been completely extinguished, and I don't know that this rainforest journey will definitely bring out some new styles. After the aircraft landed, the heat brought the heat from the rainforest and came directly to the surface. The air was full of damp earthy smell, and the body became sticky without a single moment. We got off the aircraft, switched to the broken jeep, and took a few hours to get to the edge of the Green Demon Forest. The trees here are as tall as skyscrapers, with dense trees that cannot be seen through the sun. The foot is covered with mud and vines, and you can step on the air at any step. The evil door here. Xian held the Ronaldo and tried to determine the direction, but the instrument lost its spirit at the same time. She was so angry that she was straightened. The magnetic field was fucked, and the map was useless. We had to walk straight. I think it's right. Then you still have to rely on me? I smiled, closed my eyes, and silently recited the call of the King of Beasts in my brain. Soon, the frost wolf and the icefield bear came. Although they were not suitable for this humid environment, they could still explore the way. I pointed in a direction, where there should be a path. Xian was half believing and half doubting, but she still followed me. The frost giant wolf opened the road in front, and behind the giant bear palace in the ice field, the huge body pressed the surrounding shrubs and cracked. Not long after I left, there was a strange smell in the air, like rotten fruits mixed with chemicals, which made people feel excited. "No, it's a poisonous fog." Xian reacted quickly, and Lima took out 2 easy gas masks from her backpack and threw them to me. "Wear it on, this thing can make people lose their mind." I was busy with my head and put on the mask, but I still sucked in a little. My brain was instantly sluggish, and my feet were a little stumbled. Kirsten was not much better, her face turned pale and she was breathing against a tree. Although the frost wolf and the ice-field bear were not affected, they also began to growl uneasily, as if they were conscious of some danger. "What's going on? This fog is getting more and more heavy." I gritted my teeth and stood firm. Looking around, I found that the poisonous fog was not formed naturally, but was taken out from a pile of vines in front. The vines seemed to be alive, squirming and hissing. My heart was tightened and Lima shouted, "Kirsten, back, there is a problem here." As the voice fell, the vines suddenly stormed, rushing towards us like a whip. I reacted quickly and pushed Kirsten open. I was thrust into the shoulder, which made me gasp in pain. The next second, a group of giant pythons crawled out from behind the vines, each of which was as thick as a bucket, and his eyes were as green as ghost fire. He spitted out a letter and surrounded him. The poisonous fog is sprayed from their mouths, and it becomes more and more dense, and the gas masks can no longer be raised. "Boke, what kind of monster is this?" My heart beat faster and my brain flew rapidly. The frost giant wolf roared and slapped it up to bite it, but the number of giant pythons was too large, and the slippery body could not be grasped at all, and the cold air was not very effective on them. The giant icefield bear took a few shots, but more giant pythons came up and trapped it and could not move. "Shaoan, we are surrounded." But Xinshin's voice was shaking. She took out a dagger and leaned against me, barely holding the attack of several small pythons. "If the poisonous fog doesn't dissipate, we will all faint. Just think of a way. I want to be a big deal, just fuck." I bit my teeth and stimulated the power of the Beast King's body in my brain. The object was like a burning fireball in my mind, usually warm, but this crisis seemed to ignite it. I felt a heat flowing from my chest to my brain, my vision became blurred, but at the same time, a brand new call came out inexplicably around my mouth. "Come on, come out." I shouted and slapped my hands on the ground. The next second, the ground began to shake violently, and the trees around it were rustling. A purple flash fell from the sky, slashing directly in the center of the poisonous fog, and exploded a circle of electric light. In the light, a huge python appeared slowly, covering its purple pectorials. Its eyes were like 2 thunderballs, and its electric arc crackled, and its air directly crushed the surrounding giant pythons. "This is Thunder Python?" I was stunned, but I was ecstatic. This guy is not a good guy at first glance, and he can definitely turn the game around. The sound in my brain sounded again, "Those who call me will order me to fight." I did not hesitate and ordered directly, "Fuck this to help the fish." The thunder python roared, swayed its body, and the arc was pulled out like a whip, killing several giant pythons in an instant. The poisonous fog was torn apart by the light, and the fresh air finally came in. Kirsten and I sucked a few times, and my brain became much more awake. The frost wolf and the icefield bear also took the opportunity to counterattack. In cooperation with the thunder python, the 3 giant beasts defeated the giant python group to retreat. "It's great! That's it." I clenched my fists and watched the thunder python bit the neck of a giant python, and the current directly burned it into coke. I felt so happy in my heart. Xian finally came over and said in amazement, "Your ability is too distorted, and there is another huge beast?" Are you surprised?" I grinned, but I didn't dare to relax. Although the giant python group was defeated, the poisonous fog had not completely dissipated and might be reborn at any time. "We have to get out of this ghost place with sternness." I let the thunder python open the way, and the arc slashed out away. The frost wolf and the icefield bear protected Kirsten and me, and finally rushed out of the encirclement circle. After running out of the poisonous area, we found a relatively safe high ground and sat on the ground and gasped. The thunder python plate lies beside it, and the arc is constantly bounced, as if warning the surrounding wild animals to approach. Kirsten wiped her sweat and couldn't help but complain, "Shaoan, your life is too hard, and you can turn it around in the absolute state." "I'm convinced. It must be. Who'll make me the future lord of giant beasts?" I smiled and replied, but my heart was extremely scared. If it weren't for the explosion of the Beast King, Kirsten and I might have explained this. It seems that the potential of this thing is far more than this, and later it may be possible to create something even better. But before we could catch our breath, a hurry to ask for help suddenly came from afar, and it sounded quite familiar. I stood up with my eyebrows, looked in the direction of the sound, and saw a few figures stumbled and ran around the forest, followed by a bunch of giant pythons, which seemed to be chased so hard that I had no way to go. "This sound won't be an English guy, right?" Xian also heard it. Her language was full of surprise. "Didn't this guy say he wants to compete with me in the desert? Why did he come to the rainforest?" "No matter who he is, go and have a look." I snorted coldly and headed towards the side with 3 giant beasts. Sure enough, when I got closer, I saw that it was Ingjie's guy. He carried several subordinates. A wolf was as swaying as a beggar, covered in mud and blood, and his equipment was also broken. The giant pythons were about to catch up. Ingjie's face turned pale and her mouth was still shouting, "Help! Who is here? Help us!" "Yee, isn't this a genius and a hero in the world of adventure?" I stood tall, hugged my arms and sneered, and deliberately raised my voice. "How did you achieve this kind of virtue? Didn't you say you wanted to crush me? Why was I crushed by the python first?" When Ingjie heard my voice, her face became even harder to see, as if she had eaten shit. He gritted his teeth and said, "Shaoan, just say nothing. We just failed at a moment. If you don't help, these pythons would have come to you too." "Come to me? A joke." I curled my lips and winked at the thunder python. It roared and swung the arc, directly slashing the 2 giant pythons to chase the nearest, while the other pythons were scared to retreat. Ingjie and his men were all stunned, and their mouths were so stunning that they could stuff a chicken egg. "Did you see it? This is called strength." I jumped off the high ground, walked to Ingjie, and looked at him from a high place. "It's not that I'm bragging, you're not as good as my huge beast to beat him together. Are you still embarrassed to pick me? Where's the face?" The Englishman's face was green, but he couldn't respond in a word. His men even lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at me at all. Xian was smiling beside her and said in a low voice, "Shaoan, it's almost done, don't kill people. Okay, save your lives." I waved my hand and let the giant ice-field bear carry them several times and bring them to the safe belt. Although Ingjie was unwilling to do so, she could not refuse and could only follow her with her face black. On the way, his men spoke in a low voice, and they kept peeking at my giant beast, their eyes full of shock. When we arrived at the safe belt, Ingjie finally opened her mouth, her voice as low as a mosquito, this time. "I owe you a favor. But don't be proud, I haven't played well in the rainforest. Next time in the desert, I will definitely win you. I'll be with you anytime." I sneered and had to pay attention to him again. Kirsten took out her mobile phone at this time, took a video of me and the giant saving people, and uploaded it directly to the forum. I originally wanted to record it, but I didn't expect that this video became popular again. The click volume exceeded 10,000 in just a few hours, and the comment area was directly blown up. "Shaoan is so awesome, right? The thunder python is a new caller. Who can beat the 3 giant beasts in hand? Isn't Ingjie a genius? Why do you have to rely on Shaoan to help you? I'm so laughing. Even the green demon forest can walk away. Shaoan is going to be a legend, he's so much fan." Looking at these comments, I felt so happy. Although I didn't say it, it's not too good to be able to step on Ingjie under my feet, and with such many people, it's not too easy to be simple. Kirsten looked at the screen and couldn't help but complain, "You guy is getting bigger and bigger, and I guess his lungs are blowing up now. It will explode if it explodes. Who will not make him look too scared? I laughed, put away my cell phone, and looked at the deep rainforest far away. Although this crisis has passed, there are still many secrets in Green Demon Forest that have not been uncovered, and the ancient legends in the history have not been found. I know that this is just the middle of the journey of global conquest, and there are more challenges waiting for me later. Curson, have you had some rest? Let's continue walking. I stood up, patted the soil on my body, and said to the three giant beasts, with them here, what can't be found? Let's go. Koexien shook her head helplessly, but she still packed up her equipment and kept up. Ingjia looked at our backs with a confused look, but she didn't say anything, she just left in shame with her subordinates. I knew in my heart that this guy would not be able to stop like this, but I didn't say anything about it. I came and stepped on it once, who would be afraid of who? The air in the rainforest became more and more humid, and the wilderness growled from time to time. I clenched my fists, my brain full of expectations for the future. The hot rainforest is just the second stop, with deserts, deep seas, and more unknown giants and horizons behind. No matter how difficult it is, I have to crush all the way and become the real master of the giant beast. After leaving the Green Demon Forest, Curson and I didn't stop for much and rushed directly to the third stop of our global wilderness conquest journey, Wudu Desert. This place is called Sea of Death. 1,000 kilometers in size are covered with sand. The temperature is so high that it can cook people. The water source is even rarer than gold. There are also various sandstorms and beasts. There are no trace of adventurers when they go in. I said on the forum that I wanted to challenge the desert. Originally, I was going to make a fuss on the internet. When this happened, I exploded again. Some people called me a cow, and some people said I was looking for death. The popularity directly broke the server. Shaoan, are you really not afraid of death? On the plane, Curson was holding a tablet and flipping through the information about the desert. Her face looked like she had eaten bitter melon. This place can reach 50 degrees during the day, and it was so cold at night that the sandstorm could bury people at any time, and there were also the huge sandstorm animals mentioned in the story, which were bigger than a tank and could not be penetrated. Are you sure we could stay there? You have to be on the top if you can't hold it. I leaned against the seat, my mouth was hard, but my heart was also bulging. After all, the ghost place in the desert is different from glaciers and rainforests. There is no water or cover, and it depends on hard work. I patted my chest and smiled reluctantly. With the frost giant wolf, the ice-field giant bear and the thunder python, I have to kneel down whenever there are giant beasts coming. Curson rolled her eyes and said nothing, but the notebook in her hand was not stopped, and she had been recording the precautions for desert survival. That's what she is like, she snatches me, but when it's really important, everyone is more reliable. I glanced out of the window and saw a sea of golden sand below the aircraft, which was endless, making people's skin numb. The uneasiness in my heart became stronger and stronger, but I knew that retraction was not my style. After the aircraft landed, we got off at a broken replenishment station in the desert. There are no houses like this in this place, just a few broken tents, and the air is full of sand and smell of sweat. The locals looked at us with their eyes as if they were fools, and some people muttered in a low voice, "There are 2 more people who die, and the outsiders are really not afraid of death." Stop talking, show me the way. I was in the mood to talk to them, so I took out a few tickets and stuffed them. The man grinned and pointed in a direction, walking west. There is a saying from the old green continent. However, no one has seen it in decades. Once the sandstorm comes, everything is buried. You can think about it yourself. I ordered the head, carried Curson to pack the decoration, and stuffed the backpack with a compressed and a few bottles of water, so I could last for several days. The frost giant wolf and the ice-field giant bear are not very suitable for the high temperature of the desert. I let them hide in the consciousness space and only call on the thunder python to explore the way. Although this guy is a giant beast that is hot in the rainforest, his skin is thick and his flesh is not very affected by the sand. The art can also shake the small wilderness around him. I regretted it shortly after I stepped into the desert. The sand was burning like charcoal, the soles of the shoes were almost burned, the sun was so poisonous that the eyes were not open, the sweat just flowed out and the mouth was dry as if it had eaten sand. Kuexian was not much better. Her face was so clear that she was breathing freely, but she still gritted her teeth and followed me, holding a Ronaldo in her hand, trying to find the direction. Shaoan, we can't drink water in vain, we have to save some trouble. Kuexian licked her cracked lips and reminded in a low voice, according to the map, the Green Island should be about 50 kilometers west, but the desert terrain is getting faster and the dunes move at any time, so we have to tighten it. Okay, I'll hear you. I sniffed my head, and my throat was so dry that it hurts when I said. The thunder python opened the way in front, and occasionally threw out an electric arc and killed the poisonous worm buried in the sand, barely ensuring that we were not stolen. But after walking for a few hours, I didn't say that the green is gone. I didn't see any grass, and the water in the water tank was finally seen. This broken place can really make people crazy. I couldn't help but sneer and stop to take a breath. Kirsten squatted down, took out a gadget from her backpack, and started digging the sand, muttering in her mouth, "There is groundwater in the desert. I have read it in my book. There may be water if there is high moisture under the sand. Try it." I watched her busy work, half believing and half doubting, but there was no other way. After more than 10 minutes, Kirsten suddenly felt happy and pointed to the bottom of the sand pit. "Look, there is moist sand. Dig a little deeper, there must be water." I rushed to help. Sure enough, when I dig half a meter deep, the sand began to pour out the water. Although it was so bad, I could drink it at least. We simply filtered it with the filter cloth, poured it into the water, and finally got a little bit in our hearts. "Kirsten, your brain is really not a pussy." I grinned, took a sip of water, and felt that the whole person was alive again. Kirsten wiped her sweat and said in a bad mood, "Stop slapping the farts and save some drinks. We haven't arrived in Greenland yet." But before we could be excited, a deep sound suddenly came from afar, like something huge was moving. A piece of sand slammed up from the top of the dune, covering the sky and the sun, and pressing towards us. My heart was tightened, and Lima stood up and said, "What's the situation? A sandstorm?" "It's not a sandstorm, it's a huge sandstorm." Kuexian's face changed drastically. He took out the remote mirror and saw that his voice was trembling. The body shape is at least 10 meters high, like a huge sand drip, with spikes on the shell. The sandstorm was brought by it when it moved. "We have to run." "Run? Can you run so hard?" I bit my teeth and flipped my brain. The thunder python had already begun to growl, and the arc crackled, posing in a fighting posture. But I know that this guy is definitely not the opponent of the sandstorm giant. I closed my eyes and regurgitated the power of the Beast King's creature in my brain, summoning the frost wolf and the ice-field bear. Although they are not suitable for the desert environment, they can at least have more combat power. "Kirsten, find a place to hide, hand it over to me." I turned my head and shouted to her, the sound was beyond doubt. Kuexian was stunned for a moment and stomped her feet in a hurry. "Are you crazy? This is not the time to show off. It's time for us to run together. I can't run away, it's too fast, and we have to bury it as soon as the sandstorm comes." I gritted my teeth and pointed to a low-key beltaway. "You take the equipment and hide there, I will lead it out, and I will find you after the solution." Kuexian wanted to say something, but when she saw me, she could only grit her teeth, grab her backpack and run low. I took a deep breath and shouted at the 3 giant beasts, "Go up, let me hold this big guy." The thunder python's first thrust was slashed on the shell of the sandstorm giant beast, but only a scorch mark left, and even the skin was not broken. The frost giant wolf and the ice-field giant bear also rushed up, and their claws were stolen, but the giant beast was as hard as a steel wire, without any reaction. Instead, it shook its tail and directly slapped the frost giant wolf and smashed it into the sand dune. "Bottle, this is too hard." My heart sank, but it did not retreat. My brain crazily adjusted the power of the Beast King's object and tried to find a breakthrough. The giant sandstorm growled and her huge body crushed over. The sandstorm brought over the sky and the sun was covered. The sand hit my body like a bulging, making me grit my teeth. I shouted, jumped onto the back of the thunder python, pointing to the giant eye, attack it with weakness, don't fight head-on. The thunder python roared, and the arc concentrated into a ray of lightning, hitting the giant's eyes directly. The guy was in pain, roaring and twisting his head, his huge claws slapped down, and the dune was directly knocked down. I was shocked and fell into the sand, and my mouth was covered with sand, which made me cough. But this blow at least angered it, and the giant beast gave up cursing and turned toward me. Come on, I'll play with you. I got up, wiped the sand from my face, ran towards the distance, and tried to pull it open. The giant icefield bear and the giant frost wolf climbed up again, slammed up from the side, and reluctantly held the speed of the giant beast. My brain is full of the summoning words of the king of beasts. I tried to summon another huge beast, but the desert environment was too bad, and the power in the space of consciousness seemed to be blocked by sand, and it could not be adjusted no matter how hard it was. No, rely on myself. I bit my teeth, took out a stick from my backpack, and found a sand dune top to stand. The giant beast crushed and the sandstorm became more and more fierce. My eyes were almost gone, but I didn't take a step back. The picture of the brain that was ridiculed when it suddenly flashed through the town, and Ingjia's disdainful mouth and a burst of fire rushed straight into her brain. I'm the one who wants to be the lord of the giant ball. The sand in the area also wants to slap me. To be a dream. I shouted, lifted up the iron stick, and rushed over to the giant ball. The thunder python cooperated with me, and the arc hit its eyes again. The giant icefield bear slapped its knees with one claw, making it slower. Seeing the opportunity, I jumped up and smashed it hard on its other eye. Ayo! The giant beast let out a slight roar, and my eyes were hit and blood was flowing out. It swung its body wildly, and the sandstorm became even more fierce, almost buried me directly. But I held the iron stick and the beast king object in my brain finally exploded, and a heat gushed into my limbs. I felt that I was several times stronger, and I smashed it down with another stick, directly smashing it into its eyes. The giant beast finally couldn't stand it and fell to the ground. The sandstorm also weakened and the sand settled. I sat on the ground, covered in sand and sweat, and was breathless, but I felt very happy. 3 giants came over and growled, as if they were telling me how beautiful they were. I grinned and patted the thunder python's film. Good, we win. Xuan ran over from a low voice, her face still pale, but her eyes were full of shock. Shaoan, you guy really want to die? A person is driving the huge sandstorm. What do you think? What if you fail? False action? I didn't have such a word. I stood up reluctantly, smiling a little, but my enthusiasm could not be reduced. Xuan slammed her head without saying a word, and hurriedly took out her first aid kit from her backpack and helped me deal with the wound on her arm. Okay, you're lucky. I'll give you more this time, otherwise we'll have to explain this. After the sandstorm dissipated, we found that there was a green color far away, as if the green was buried under the sand was swayed by the giant beasts. Kirsten and I looked at each other and saw that it was indeed a small green island with clear water and several trees. Although there were not many fruits, they could at least fill their stomachs. We kept replenishing the water source, rested for a few hours, and finally came over. But before we could relax, a group of people suddenly appeared around, wearing old desert robes, holding long spears and swords in their hands, staring at us with vigilant eyes. The head is an old man, full of facial patterns, eyes are slim but shrewd. He asked in Shaya's voice, "Who are you outside? Why did you enter our holy land?" Holy land? I was stunned for a moment, and hurriedly explained, "We are adventurers and come to the desert to challenge the wilderness, and we just defeated the huge sandstorm beast, and we did not intend to offend your ground." The old man heard the sandstorm giant beast, his eyes changed, he walked closer with the people, and carefully looked at me and my 3-head giant beast. After a while, he suddenly smiled and showed a few yellow teeth. "Young man, you are very bad. The giant sandstorm is the beast of our tribe's trial. No one has ever been able to defeat it in many years. Come with me, the tribe will treat you with a gift. Kurson and I looked at each other, and although we couldn't touch our heads, we still followed us. Their tribe is located deep in the Greenland, with dozens of tents surrounded by tents. Men, women, young and old are wearing long robes and dark skin. When we look at us, we are curious and awe. The old man called himself a tribe, and brought us to the largest tent, served us with a croaker and goat milk, which was so hot. Young man, what's your name? The old man sat down with his legs and asked with his eyes narrowed. I grinned and said, my name is Shaoan. This is my partner Shaoan. We are challenging the conquest of the global wilderness, and the desert is the third stop. Shaoan. The elder thought of my name all over, and his eyes suddenly became deeper. You can kill the giant beasts and attack the sandstorm beasts to show that you have ancient power. Tell me, have you heard of the contract between giant beasts and humans? Contract? What contract? I was stunned, and I was so curious. Kurson also raised her ears, and she was obviously very interested in this topic. The old man drank a sip of goat milk and opened his mouth slowly. In ancient times, giant beasts and humans were not enemies, but coexisting allies. At that time, there was a king of beasts who had established a contract to protect humans, and humans provided the power of faith for giant beasts. Later, the contract broke down, the giant beasts retreated, and their power was scattered everywhere, becoming a living thing. My heartbeats accelerated when I remembered the power of the Beast King's object in my brain and asked in a low voice, will this contract still have a chance to repair it? The eldest son was looking at the head, and there was a lot of expectation in his eyes. Yes, but a real Beast King is needed. You can seize the huge beasts and show that you are the chosen one. Your mission is not only to conquer the wilderness, but also to rebuild the contract and reconcile the giant beasts with human beings. As soon as this happened, Kurson and I were stunned. I thought I was just challenging the wilderness and becoming the strongest adventurer, but I didn't expect that there was such a huge responsibility to be pressed on my shoulders. Shaoan said in a short voice, Shaoan, it's not easy to hear this, we have to think about it. What are you thinking? Isn't this cool? I smiled and patted my chest. Whether it's conquest or contract, I've accepted it. Old man, please tell me if you have any clues. The old man smiled and pointed his head, took out a broken stone slab from it with some incomprehensible symbols. This is the sacred object of our tribe, and recorded the direction of the next reel, the purity of the deep sea. I picked up the stone slab and a fire ignited in my heart. The deep sea is so pure that it is not a good place to hear, but the harder it is, the more we feel. Just as I was about to ask a few more words, a sudden burst of rush came from outside the tent. Someone ran in and shouted, Old man, there was a foreigner from outside, carrying a team of people, saying that he was looking for trouble for the name Shaoan. When I heard this, Lima stood up and his face darkened. I'm so irritating. I want to see who it is. When I walked out of the tent, I saw that it was indeed Ing's guy, wearing a tall escort, carrying more than 10 subordinates, and with weapons, standing outside the tribe. When he saw me, he sneered at the corner of his mouth, Shaoan, I didn't expect you to be here. However, I won't let you get so relaxed in the desert. Ye, come and ask for a thrust again? I held my arms without any fear. I saved my life in the rainforest last time, why didn't I remember it? What tricks do you have, even if you use it? Ing's face froze, but soon recovered from disdain and said in a low voice, Don't be proud, Shaoan. There are so many surprises in the desert. Don't blame me for not reminding you. After speaking, he turned around and took someone away, but the coldness in his eyes made my heart skip. This guy is absolutely in a bad way. Kurson walked over and said in a short voice, Shaoan, Ing is not a good person. There are a few people he brought with him holding desert maps, as if they had already stepped on them. We have to be careful and don't be cheated by him. Take me? It depends on whether he has the ability. I snorted coldly and looked at the sea of sand far away. Although the appearance of the heroes made people angry, the words of the elders made me feel even more excited. The contract between the giant beast and human beings, the mission of the king of beasts, all of which are bigger and more ignited than my original goal. I tightened the stone slab in my hand and decided that no matter what was ahead, I would have to crush it all the way. Curson, have you had some rest? Let's go to the deep sea next. I turned to her, and the sound was full of struggle. Xian sighed, but she still pointed. Okay, who let me follow you like a crazy person? Let's go. The tribe sent us away, and the elder stood in front, with his eyes full of hope. I pointed at him, embarked on a new journey with 3 giant beasts and Curson. The challenge of the desert has passed, but the greater secrets and dangers are still waiting for me. Whether it is Ing's traits or the unknowns in the deep sea are shattered. Come on, I'm not afraid of any of them. After leaving the desert without much trouble, Curson and I rushed directly to the final stop of our global wilderness conquest journey, the ancient volcano group. This place, called the Gate of the Earth, is one of the most dangerous forbidden areas on the Earth. It is full of lava, and the air is full of sulfur. The temperature is so high that it can melt the steel. In the story, the strongest giant beast in the wilderness is breathing here, the flame dragon. It is as shaped as a mountain, and breathing can burn everything. Even the top adventurers dare not approach it. I posted a message on the forum saying that I would challenge the volcanoes and dragons. I exploded online, and the click volume exceeded 100 million in a few hours. Some people called me crazy, and some people said I was a real boss. The popularity broke the server twice. Shaoan, this time is not a joke. On the plane, Curson held a tablet and flipped through the information of the ancient volcano group. Her face looked like a ghost. There is not only lava and poison here, but also a crater that explodes at any time. It falls into it. The flame dragon even says it is of different level, saying that one claw can smash a mountain. Are you sure we can handle it? I can't handle it, but I have to do it. I leaned against the seat, my mouth was hard, but my heart was bulging. After all, this is the last stop. The glaciers, rainforests and deserts are all over the front. If you were to go through this car, all your previous efforts will be in vain. I patted my chest and smiled. With the frost wolf, the ice-field bear, and the thunder python, what are you afraid of? Besides, the power of the Beast King object has not yet been completely extinguished, and I think I can make a big tranquility this time. Curson rolled her eyes and said nothing, but the notebook in her hand was not stopped and she was recording the appropriate solutions for the volcanic terrain. She snatched me, but she was more dependent on everyone's attention at the moment. I glanced out of the window and saw a piece of black and red land below the aircraft. The lava river meandered like blood, and the craters far away were filled with black smoke, like the entrance to the ground. The uneasiness in my heart became stronger and stronger, but I knew that retraction was not my style ever. The aircraft landed at the temporary replenishment station beside the volcanic group. There were no such sheds, just a few iron leather houses, and the air was filled with a scent of sulfur. Several old people from the local area looked at us, their eyes as if they were looking at the dead. Someone muttered, "I'm here to die again." Young people are really not afraid of their lives. Stop talking, show me the way. I was in the mood to talk to them, so I took out a few tickets and stuffed them. The old man grinned and pointed in a direction, walking southeast. The largest crater is called the Wilder of Dragon Flame, and he said that the dragon slept underneath. But let's give you no effort, no matter how many people come in, they never come back. I ordered the head, carried Curson to pack the decoration, and stuffed it with a compressed and high-temperature water-resistant pot, so I could last for several days. The frost giant wolf and the ice-field giant bear are not very suitable for high-temperature environments. I will let them stay in the consciousness space first and call on the thunder python to explore the way. This guy has thick skin and thick flesh, and the electric arc can also shake the small volcanic creatures around him, so he can barely get a little taller. Not long after I stepped into the volcanic group, I felt like I was entering the oven. The ground was soaked that the soles of the shoes were squeaking, and the air was so hot that it was like a burning lung. When the sweat was flowing out, it steeped in the mouth, and the mouth was dry like a desert. Xian was not much better. Her face was so clear that she was breathing freely, but she still gritted her teeth and followed me, holding a Ronaldo in her hand, trying to find the direction. Shaoan, you have to save water. This place is more difficult to supplement than the desert. Xian licked her cracked lips and reminded her in a low voice, according to the map, the turbulence of the dragon flame is 30 kilometers southeast, but the volcanic terrain is getting faster, and the lava is diverted at any time, so we have to tighten it. Okay, I'll hear you. I sniffed my head, and my throat was so dry that it hurts when I said. The thunder python opened the way in front, and occasionally threw out an electric arc and killed the volcanic lizard, barely ensuring that we were not stolen. But after walking for a few hours, I didn't even find a crater. I couldn't find any other road. It was surrounded by black volcanic rocks and flowing lava, and my eyes were almost gone. This broken place can really make people crazy. I couldn't help but sneer and stop to take a breath. Kirsten squatted down, took out a small instrument from her backpack, and began to measure the surface temperature, muttering in her mouth, "The lava flow is regular. I have read it in the book. There may be passages in places with low temperatures. Try it." I watched her busy work, half believing and half doubting, but there was no other way. After more than 10 minutes, Xian suddenly felt happy and pointed to a crack. "Look, the temperature here is lower than the surrounding area. It should be a cold lava channel that can lead to deep." I hurriedly followed her. Sure enough, the crack could leave. Although it was still very hot, it would at least not be roasted directly. But before we could relax, the ground suddenly shook violently, as if something huge was moving. A low roar came from the depths of the crack, shaking the stone walls. The heat in the air instantly stormed, and even the thunder python began to growl uneasily, and the arc was shattered. My heart was tightened and Lima Station was at ease. What's the situation? A volcano is about to explode? It's not a burst, it's a flame dragon. Xian's face changed drastically. When she took out the utensil, she saw that her voice was trembling. The energy wave is too strong. This guy may be right in front of me. We have to prepare well. Prepare for nothing, just fuck me when I come. I bit my teeth and fucked my brain quickly. The thunder python is already posed for a fight, but I know that it is definitely not a match for the giant dragon. I closed my eyes and regurgitated the power of the Beast King in my brain, summoning the Frost Wolf and the Icefield Bear. Although they were not suitable for high temperature, they could at least have more combat power. Kirsten, find a place to hide, hand it over to me. I turned my head and shouted to her. The sound was beyond doubt. Xian was stunned for a moment and stomped her feet in a hurry. Are you crazy? This is not the time to show off. The flame giant dragon is not comparable to the giant beasts before. It's still time for us to run together. If you can't run, it's a dead end to run. I gritted my teeth and pointed to a sunken stone wall next to the crack. You can hide from there with the rift. I will lead it open, and I will find you after the solution. Xian wanted to say something, but when she saw me, she could only grit her teeth, grab her backpack and run towards the stone wall. I took a deep breath and shouted to the 3 giant beasts, "Go up, let me hold this big guy." The voice fell, and the deep roar of the crack became closer, and the heat waves came over, and then a huge shadow appeared slowly. The guy covered the burning flakes all over his body, spreading his wings like clouds covering the sky and the sun. His eyes were as red as lava, and his breath was full of flames, and his body shape was larger than all the giants I had seen combined. Boke, this is too annoying. My heart sank, but it did not retreat. My brain crazily adjusted the power of the Beast King's object and tried to find a breakthrough. The first thunder python was pushed up, and the arc slashed hard on the dragon's piece, but only a scorch mark was left, and the skin was not broken. The Frost Wolf and the Icefield Giant Bear also rushed up, and their claws were stolen, but the dragon was as hard as a steel wire, without any reaction. Instead, it shook its tail and directly slapped the Frost Wolf into the stone wall, smashing it into the stone wall, and even the lava was shaken. Shaoan, don't fight head-on, look for weakness. Xian hid behind the stone wall and shouted, full of anxiety in her voice. I bit my teeth tightly and pointed at the dragon's eyes. Attack its eyes, don't worry. The thunder python roared, and the arc concentrated into a ray of lightning, hitting the dragon's eyes directly. The guy was in pain, roaring and twisting his head, and his huge claws slapped down, and a piece of zipper broke directly on the ground. I was shocked and fell into the pile of gravel. My body was covered in burns and gritted my teeth in pain. But this blow at least angered it. The dragon abandoned its surroundings and rushed towards me. With a breath, the lava was burned even more red, and the heat forced my eyes to silence. I shouted, jumped onto the back of the giant ice-field bear, ran away, and tried to draw it open. The brain is full of the call of the king of beasts. The test call is another huge beast, but the high-temperature environment is too bad, and the power in the space of consciousness seems to be controlled by flames, and it cannot be adjusted no matter how hard it is. No, rely on myself. I bit my teeth, took out the iron stick from my backpack, and found a high point to stand. As the giant dragon crushed and the flames were blowing harder, my clothes were burned and my skin was blistering, but I didn't take a step back. The picture of the brain that was ridiculed when it suddenly flashed through the town, and Ingjia's disdainful mouth and a burst of fire rushed straight into her brain. I'm the one who wants to be the lord of the giant ball. The dragon in the district wants to slap me? To be a dream. I shouted, lifted up the iron stick, and rushed over to the giant ball. The thunder python cooperated with me, and the arc hit its eyes again. The giant ice-field bear slapped its knees with one claw, making it slower. Seeing the opportunity, I jumped up and smashed it hard on its other eye. Ayo, the dragon let out a slight roar, and my eyes were hit and blood was flowing out. It swung its body wildly, and the flames became even stronger, almost burning me to ashes. But I held the iron stick and the Beast King object in my brain finally exploded, and a heat gushed into my limbs. I felt that I was several times stronger, and I smashed it down with another stick, directly smashing it into its eyes. The dragon finally couldn't bear it and fell to the ground, shaking the entire crater, and the lava was filled with it. I sat on the ground, sweating and burning, and gasping for free, but I felt so happy. 3 giants came over and growled, as if they were telling me how beautiful they were. I grinned and patted the thunder python's film. Good, we win. But before I could catch my breath, the familiar voice suddenly echoed in my brain, where the heart is, where the force is, subjugate, or destroy it. I was stunned for a moment, and Lima reacted, walked to the giant dragon, reached out and pressed it on its burning head. A blue light spread from my palm to it, and the dragon's red eyes gradually became gentle. With a low growl, it lowered its head, as if it was surrendering. It's done. I sat on the ground, smiling like a fool. Kuexian ran over from behind the stone wall, her face still pale, but her eyes were full of shock. Shaoan, you guy really want to die? A person leads the giant dragon of flames. What do you think? What if you fail? False action? I didn't have such a word. I stood up reluctantly, smiling a little, but my enthusiasm could not be reduced. Kuexian slammed her head without saying a word, and hurriedly took out her first aid kit from her backpack and helped me deal with the wound. Okay, you're lucky. I'll give you more this time, otherwise we'll have to explain this. But at this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps suddenly came from the crater. I felt nervous and turned my head and looked at it. Sure enough, I saw a familiar figure. Ingjie. This guy was wearing a high-temperature resistant equipment, carrying a few subordinates, hiding sneakily behind the stone wall, and holding a strange weapon in his hand, like an energy-efficient device. When he saw me surrendering the dragon, his face froze at first, and then he showed a cold smile. Shaoan, I didn't expect you to be able to deal with this dragon. However, the power of this Beast King's celestial object is not something you can possess. Yeah, come and ask for a slap again? I sneered and stood up. Although my body hurt so much, my temper did not decrease. I didn't teach you in the desert last time? Why didn't you remember? What tricks do you have, even if you do it? Ingjie's face darkened and he gave a wink at his subordinates. The few men took out their weapons and rushed towards me. At the same time, he activated the weapon in his hand, and a strange wave rushed towards me. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt the power of the Beast King's object being disturbed, as if it was being pulled by something, and the giant beasts also began to growl uneasily. This guy wants to steal something. Xian reacted quickly, shouted, took out a dagger from her backpack, and slammed it on to catch a subordinate. I bit my teeth tightly, exercised the power of regulating the object, pressed down the jerk, and shouted at the giant beasts in all four, "Go up, let me fuck them." The giant flame dragon growled and breathed, directly burned the two subordinates to ashes. The giant thunder python swung the arc and fell down another one. The giant frost wolf and the giant ice field bear also rushed up, suppressing the others. Jie saw that his face changed drastically, and he turned around and wanted to run away, but how could I let him jump onto the back of the frost giant wolf as if he were willing, and chased after him a few steps, and grabbed his leader. "Run. Where to go? I will let you know today. What is a force-crushing force? You let me go." Jie slammed her face blue, but I was much stronger than him. She punched him in the stomach, causing him to thrust his waist directly. I sneered, took the instrument from his hand, stomped it, the wave disappeared instantly, and the power of the object stabilized again. "Just this little trick, I want to kill my things." I looked down at him, my voice full of disdain. "Jie, you looked down on me from the beginning, but look, who is the wastewood now?" Not only did I subdue the giant dragon of flames, but also carried 4 giant beasts. The journey of conquering the world wilderness has reached this point. What about you? You have to rely on me to save your life. Jie's face was green, but he couldn't respond in a word, so he could only lower his head and breathe heavily. His subordinates were all suppressed by giant beasts and they didn't dare to move. Curson walked over, patted the gray on her hands, and snorted coldly, "Shaoan, don't talk to such people, you can throw them out, so as to avoid being blind." "Okay, I'll hear you." I laughed and winked at the giant icefield bear. It directly carried Jie and his men and threw them a few 10 meters away from the crater, causing them to scream. I looked at their wolfish backs and felt so happy. This guy don't want to jump in front of me again. After solving Jie, Curson and I returned to the flame dragon, and the voice suddenly echoed in our brains, "The time for the contract has arrived. You are the new king, and you will reshape your peace." I was stunned for a moment, and then a blue light burst out from the object, covering me and the giant beasts of all 4. In the light, I saw scenes of ancient scenes, giants fighting shoulder to shoulder with humans, forming contracts and protecting each other. The voice continued, "You have a pure heart, strong will, the contract will be restored, and the day when the giant beast and human beings coexist, from today." As the blue light dissipated, I felt an unprecedented force flowing into my body, and the giant beasts of all 4 roared around me, with confidence in my eyes. I felt warm in my heart and finally realized my mission, not only to conquer the wilderness, but also to become a bridge for peaceful coexistence between giants and humans. Curson looked at me with admiration in her eyes. "Shaoan, you have really done it. The truth of this contract is so shocking." "It must be." I grinned and patted her on the shoulder. "There are you all along the way, otherwise I would have been hanging up. Next, we have to send this news out so that the whole world knows that the giant is not an enemy, but a partner." Xian clicked the head, took out her phone, took a picture of the video of me and the giants, and there was also the light of the contract to reopen, and it was directly uploaded to the forum. Once the video was released, the shot was directly blown up online, and the click volume exceeded 10 million in a few minutes, and the comment area was full of shock and admiration. "Shaoan is too awesome, right? Subduing the flame dragon, and reopening the faraway contract? This is true." Jie was crushed so hard that he had no temper. I was so laughed to death. Shaoan is the real boss. The giant beast coexisted with humans? If this news is true, the world will change and it will be more fans. Looking at these comments, my heart was so beautiful that I bubbling. From the wastewood in the town to the current lord of the giant ball, the journey of conquering the world wilderness was perfectly concluded, and my name, Swan, finally became an adventure history. I turned to the crater far away. The lava was still flowing, but I no longer had any fear in my heart, only expectations for the future. Curson, our journey is over, but new things have just begun. I clenched my fists, my voice filled with aspirations. Next, I want the whole world to see the new era of giants and humans. Xian smiled and pointed her head, her eyes full of support. Okay, who let me follow you like a crazy person? Let's go, Lord of the Giant Beast. The lava of the volcanic group is still flowing slowly, and the black and red surface is like the scars of the earth, but there is only a clear light in my heart. Subdued the giant dragon of flames and reopened the ancient contract. This journey from the wastewood in the town to the current Lord of Giant Beasts, the journey of conquering the world wilderness finally ended in the first chapter of the painting. Curson stood beside me, holding her phone in her hand, and the screen was full of forum comments, and the click volume had already exceeded 100 million, and the admiration and shock of netizens almost overflowed the screen. Shaoan, you are now in the global focus. Xian smiled and slammed her head, stuffed her phone back into her pocket, her eyes filled with emotion. From the joked broken boy in the small town to the current Lord of the Giant, this has changed too much. Hey, it must be. I patted my chest and grinned. Although I was still suffering from burning pain, I felt so happy. I turned to look at the 4 giant beasts behind me, the frost wolf, the ice-field bear, the thunder python and the flame dragon. They either growled or slapped, their eyes full of trust in me. At that moment, I really felt that I was invincible. Curson, we not only end our journey, but also open a new chapter. I took a deep breath and pointed to the sky far away. We have to promote the concept of coexistence between giants and humans, so that the whole world knows that these big guys are not enemies, but partners. Xian pointed his head and looked calm. Okay, I'll fuck you with you in this matter. But, what should I do next? You can't stay in this crater all the time, right? Of course not. I laughed, jumped onto the back of the giant dragon in flames, and reached out to her. Go back to the town first, bring this news back, and let those who once looked down on me look at me, who is the real adventurer. Come up, let's fly back. Xian was stunned for a moment, but then she smiled and grabbed my hand and jumped on it. The giant dragon roared, spread its wings, and rose into the sky with a hot air flow. The lava belt quickly shrank under the feet, turning into a blurred black-red. The other 3 giant beasts are hidden in the consciousness space and are on standby at any time. The wind shaves on the face. Although it is a bit difficult to feel, the feeling of thrilling in my heart cannot be suppressed. I looked down at the world under my feet, and there was only one thought in my heart: I finally did it. A few days later, the giant dragon of flames landed on us in the wilderness outside the town. The huge body made the ground sink slightly, and the heat waves brought to the surrounding grasslands instantly burned. I jumped down and took a picture of the dragon, so that it could stay in the woods with a low profile. As soon as this guy appeared, it was probably going to scare the entire town. The other 3 giant beasts are also kept hidden to avoid unnecessary panic. Curson sorted out the accessories and walked towards the town with me, with an unconcealed smile on her face. The town still has the same old style: muddy roads, broken road lights, several old men squat on the street corners to smoke, muttering something in their mouths. But when Curson and I walked into the town, everyone was stunned. Later, someone recognized me and was shocked. Isn't this a shrine? He's back. What? That waste? Another person rubbed his eyes, as if he had seen a ghost. Didn't he say he was challenging the wilderness of the world? He had already died. Why are you still alive? The discussion grew louder and louder, and the men, women, young and old on the street swept over, surrounding me and Curson. I hugged my arms, and a smile came out of my mouth, without saying a word, just staring at them quietly. No matter how long I laughed at the helper that I was the most, the strong man, came out of the crowd. When they saw me, they were stunned at first, but then their faces became as hard as eating shit. Yeah, great, I haven't seen it for a long time. I deliberately raised my voice, my eyes full of sneering. Remember what you said at the beginning? I said I couldn't even beat wild pigs, and I still wanted to be a risky man? How about it, do you still dare to say this now? The strong face was as red as a monkey's butt. He had been grunting for a long time, but he couldn't hold up a word. Several followers beside him also lowered their heads, not daring to look at me at all. Someone in the crowd muttered in a low voice, "I heard that this boy has really completed the global conquest and subdued some giant dragons. It's been tragic on the internet." It probably isn't bragging. It's not bragging, it's true. Koexian took out her phone from her backpack, adjusted the videos on the forum, and put them on for everyone to see. On the screen is the scene of me fighting shoulder to shoulder with the flame dragon, and the blue light at the time of the contract, which was shocked to the scene. After reading to Chang, their faces turned whiter and their legs began to shake. Shaoan. We used to be blind and polite. You don't remember villains, don't talk to us. Da Qiang finally put on a sentence, lowered his head, and his voice was as low as a mosquito. The others also followed suit and began to apologize, with their attitudes being more humble than the other. Precaution? I don't have that time. I sneered and waved my hand, but remember, don't look down on others in the future, and maybe I'll be beaten one day. Understand? I understand. I understand. Da Qiang and his face were full of awkwardness. A burst of laughter broke out in the crowd, but more of awe and admiration. Someone started to applaud, and then his voice became louder and louder, and almost the entire town was filled with shouting. Several children ran over and asked around me, their eyes full of stars. Brother Swan, have you really surrendered to Julong? Can we see? Yes, right, I heard you have giant wolf and giant bear, call it out and have a look. I smiled and rubbed their heads, and whistled towards the edge of the woods. The next second, the giant flame dragon walked out slowly, and the huge body in burning film directly shocked the whole scene. The hot waves forced the crowd to take a few steps back, but then there was a greater surprise and roar. The frost giant wolf, the ice-field giant bear and the thunder python also appeared. Although they deliberately stopped the air, the pressure still made people's legs soft. The trough, this is too awesome. Someone knelt directly on the ground, his face full of shock. People in the town have never seen such scenes. They all look like gods and their eyes are full of admiration. I stood among the huge beasts of 4 heads, holding my head up, feeling so happy in my heart. This is the roster I should have. Koexian was smiling beside her and said in a short voice, "Shaoan, it's almost done, don't be scared. We still have to talk about serious things." "Okay, I'll hear you." I pointed my head, cleared my throat, and shouted to the crowd, "Everyone, I'm back today, not only the clothes and villages, but also the important news. The giant and humans are not enemies, but partners who can coexist. I have rebooted the far ancient contract. From now on, we will start a new era with the giant." As soon as this happened, the whole scene was calm for a few seconds, and then a bigger shout broke out. Although many people don't fully understand what a contract is, they instinctively believed me when they looked at the giant beasts beside me. Someone shouted, "Shaoan, you are the hero of our town. We will all hear you if you have anything to do in the future." Hero? I like this name. I laughed and snatched everyone, but it's not up to me alone, it's up to everyone to work together. Next, Kursin and I will create an adventure alliance to promote the concept of coexistence between giants and humans. Whoever is interested can join. There were a few young people standing in the crowd and shouting happily, "I join. I want to venture with the giants too." Koexian smiled and recalled their names, and said to me in a short voice, "It seems that this alliance will have a head as soon as it is opened. Shaoan, your charisma is really not a big deal. That must." I grinned, and my heart began to count the details of the alliance. At this moment, someone came in from behind the crowd and shouted panting, "Shaoan, there is news outside that Ng Jia posted a statement online and finally withdrew from the adventure world. He also said, he will never compare with you again, I will recognize it." "Yeah, are you finally doing it?" I raised my eyebrows and sneered at the corner of my mouth. The guy Ng Jia looked down on me from the beginning, but he was stepped on me every time. Now he doesn't even want his last face and just thinks about it. Kirsten took out her phone and saw that the forum was full of this news. Netizens laughed at her, and some people also joked. Wang Jie's operation was considered to have put his face at Grandma's house. Shaoan is the real boss. Go with him, even the opponent's qualifications are gone, so I don't care what he is doing. I snatched my hand and had to mention this person again. From now on, no one in the adventure world dares to doubt my strength anymore. The name Swan has become a saying. In the next few days, Kirsten and I stayed in the town and began to prepare for the Adventure Alliance. We used the popularity of the forum to quickly attract a group of like-minded people to join. Not only are there young people from small towns, but also adventurers from all over the world, and even some technology companies and government agencies have taken the initiative to contact each other, saying that we should cooperate to promote the concept of coexistence between giants and humans. Kashi is responsible for contacting and planning. We bring giant beasts to demonstrate, so that more people can see the power and warmth of giant beasts with their own eyes. In less than a month, the Adventure Alliance was officially established. The headquarters was located in the town. A modern base was built next to the broken road lights. There was also a statue of me at the door, and next to it was a small model of 4 giant beasts. The town has become popular because of the establishment of the Alliance, and tourists and media are indefinitely hiding. Those who laughed at me at the beginning have now become my fans, turning around the base every day, wanting to see a few more giants. Shaoan, this alliance is developing too fast. Xian couldn't help but sigh with a report. Now there are hundreds of branches around the world that respond to our philosophy, and many people have taken the initiative to apply to establish a contact with the giants. It seems that the resumption of the contract is really not just a saying. Hey, of course. I smiled and patted her on the shoulder. I am the Lord of the Giant Balls. Shouldn't this impact be there? Next, we have to find a few more ancient times, saying that we might be able to summon more giants and let this concept of coexistence stand firmly. Xian clicked the head, and just about to say something, the phone suddenly fell off. She followed a few sentences, and she was happy and said to me, Shaoan, the United Nations has just sent an invitation, saying that she would ask you to do a global live broadcast speech to spread the concept of coexistence between giants and humans to every corner. What do you think? Live broadcast? I like this. My eyes lit up, and Lima stood up. Let's go, prepare for it. I want the whole world to know that the Lord of the Giant Beast was not blown out. A few days later, the day for global live broadcasts has arrived. I was wearing a special adventure gear and stood on the lecture stage of the United Nations conference. Next to me were Kirsten and a small team of Alliance members. The 4 giants appeared on the screen in the form of projections. Although they were not real bodies, the atmosphere still shocked the whole scene. The audience was filled with representatives and media from all over the world, and the camera was directed at me, and the live broadcast signal covered several billion people around the world. Everyone, I am Shaoan, from an adventurer in an old town. I cleared my throat and spread the voices throughout the world through the McGraphic style. Since I was young, I was ridiculed as a waste of firewood, but I didn't accept it. With a lot of blood, I completed the journey of conquering the world wilderness, subdued 4 giant beasts in the vast world, and became the master of giant beasts. Today, I stand here, not showing off, but telling everyone the truth. Giant beasts and human beings, not enemies, but partners who can fight on their own. A sound of hearing broke out from the audience, and I continued. I rekindled the far ancient contract, and proved that the power of giant beasts can protect humans, and human beliefs can also nourish giant beasts. From now on, the Adventure Alliance will lead everyone and enter the new era. Whether you are an ordinary person or adventurer, you can find your own giant beast partner. This world will change because of us. The voice fell, and the whole audience was filled with thunder. The live broadcast screen exploded, and the enthusiasm of netizens almost broke the internet. Someone shouted, Shaoan is awesome. The Lord of the Giant Beast is so old. Someone was so moved that he fell silent. This is the real hero, the man who changed the world. Koexian looked at me from the side, her eyes full of pride, and she said in a low voice, "Shaoan, your speech is probably ready to be loaded into the history. Hey, it's so-called to be unspeakable. The key is that this concept has been passed on." I smiled and replied, my heart was so ignited. After the speech ended, representatives from various countries came to shake hands. Some proposed to establish a global giant research organization, and some said they wanted to provide assistance to the Adventure Alliance, and the scene was very hot. I know that from this moment on, the era of coexistence between giants and humans has really come. A few months later, I stood on the top of the mountain outside the town, with the giant dragon lying beside me, and the other 3 giant beasts were also calmly guarding. At the foot of the mountain is the base of the Adventure Alliance, with bright lights and fire. Numerous young people are learning how to meet the giant beasts on the training ground, laughter and shouting one after another. Kirsten walked over, holding a report in her hand, and said with a smile, "Shaoan, the Alliance branch has now covered 5 continents around the world. Every day, new giants are discovered and called, and the power of the contract is getting stronger and stronger. The name of the Lord of the Giant is finally fulfilled. If you want to sit down, just sit down. I'm not afraid of challenge anyway." I laughed, jumped onto the back of the giant dragon in flames, and reached out to her. "Kirsten, come up, let's go around and see how the world changes." Kirsten didn't refuse and grabbed my hand and jumped on it. The giant dragon roared lowly, spread its wings and rose up in the sky. The town turned into a small point under the foot. Far away were connected mountains, rivers, vast oceans, and countless wilderness waiting to be explored. I overlooked this world, and I had no limitless satisfaction in my heart. From waste to translator, I changed everything with my own hands. "Kirsten, next, our adventure is not over," I shouted, and the sound replied in the wind, "No matter whether it is a new giant or an unknown wanderer, I will take you and crush you all the way." Koexian smiled and pointed her head, her eyes filled with struggle. "Okay, who will let me follow you like a crazy person? Let's go, Lord of the Giant Beast." The roar of the giant dragon in flames responded to the sky and carried us far away. At that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges there were in the future, I was afraid. Because I am Shaoan, the Lord of the Giant Balls, this world has engraved my legend.